The grand hall buzzed with an air of anticipation, the kind that comes before an unexpected spectacle. Guests milled about, their conversations a mixture of politics, art, and the latest controversies, but soon all talk centered around the unfolding challenge. It had started as a jest, a playful provocation delivered with the kind of confidence that thrives in the certainty of an easy victory. Pam Bondi stood among the crowd, poised as ever when the challenge was issued. It wasn't subtle. The invitation was wrapped in amusement, a thinly veiled attempt to set the stage for a spectacle that would surely be remembered. The suggestion carried an underlying assumption, one that was shared by most in the room. A piano duel. A test of skill on an instrument that had long been associated with grace and refinement. The idea seemed amusing, almost absurd. After all, what were the odds that she could play at all, let alone well enough to hold her own in a contest? It was an elegant, harmless way to expose what was expected to be an obvious lack of ability. A few chuckles rippled through the crowd as curious eyes turned to her, waiting for her reaction. Some leaned in, eager to see whether she would refuse outright or attempt to brush it off with humor. Others exchanged knowing glances, already predicting the outcome should she dare to accept. The challenge was delivered with an air of certainty. This was supposed to be an easy moment of triumph, a clever display that would leave the audience entertained and confirm what many had assumed about her. But something unexpected happened. Instead of hesitating, instead of making an excuse or laughing it off, she simply smiled. It wasn't a nervous smile, nor one meant to mask uncertainty. It was something else entirely. Calm, assured, knowing. The moment stretched, and in that small pause, the atmosphere in the room shifted just slightly. A flicker of curiosity replaced some of the amusement, though few dared to acknowledge it yet. Then, without a word, she stepped forward. The crowd parted for her as she walked toward the grand piano that had been sitting untouched at the edge of the room, its glossy surface reflecting the golden glow of the chandeliers. Silence fell over the gathering. This wasn't the reaction anyone had expected. The lighthearted challenge had been made with the assumption that it would lead to an easy, amusing conclusion. A refusal. A joke. Anything but this. She reached the bench and, with practiced ease, settled into place. Her fingers brushed over the keys, testing them, feeling their weight beneath her touch. There was no rush, no hesitation. The room waited, watching, as the first note rang out. The challenge had been issued with an unmistakable tone, one laced with amusement, expectation, and a hint of mockery. It wasn't just about music, it was about spectacle, about creating a moment that would be talked about long after the night had ended. There was something effortless about the way the invitation had been extended, as if it were a mere formality before the inevitable embarrassment to follow. The assumption was clear. She wouldn't know her way around a piano, not beyond the clumsy pressing of a few scattered keys. It was supposed to be a light-hearted affair, a moment of entertainment at her expense, a performance meant to elicit chuckles rather than admiration. The room itself seemed to share in the expectation. Eyes darted between her and the grand piano, their silent judgments already forming. A few leaned in, ready for the moment when hesitation would betray her, when an awkward laugh or an attempt at deflection would confirm what everyone already believed. But she didn't hesitate. Her expression remained composed, revealing nothing beyond quiet confidence. There was no nervous glance toward the piano, no self-conscious attempt to dismiss the challenge. Instead, there was a brief pause, just long enough for the laughter to settle, for the weight of expectation to press down fully. There were those who had already begun to murmur, exchanging whispers of amusement. It wasn't often that someone of her stature was placed in such an impromptu test, and the outcome seemed certain before it had even begun. She was meant to falter. That was the point of this moment. The laughter that had accompanied the challenge had been casual but pointed, the kind of laughter that carried an unspoken certainty. There was no malice in it, not exactly, but there was something else. Assumption. the kind that wrote the ending of a story before it had truly begun. The grand piano, sitting in quiet elegance at the edge of the room, seemed almost like a prop in a carefully constructed scene. A beautiful instrument meant for the hands of the trained, the skilled, the experienced, not hers, or so they thought. As she made her way toward it, the atmosphere shifted ever so slightly. The amused smiles remained, but they were tinged now with something else, a flicker of curiosity, the smallest seed of doubt. Perhaps it was the way she carried herself, the complete absence of hesitation. Perhaps it was the way she let her fingers drift lightly over the keys, testing their weight, not like a stranger encountering them for the first time, but like someone reacquainting herself with something long familiar. A single note sounded, soft yet deliberate. The room, once filled with quiet laughter and murmurs, grew still. The assumption that had once felt so certain began to waver, just slightly, as the next note followed. The first note lingered in the air, delicate yet deliberate, cutting through the silence that had settled over the room. A moment ago, there had been quiet chuckles, knowing smirks, the collective expectation of an amusing but forgettable display. Now, all of that faded into the background, replaced by something else entirely, something unspoken, something unexpected. Her fingers moved again, pressing softly against the keys, coaxing out another note, then another. The sound blossomed into something fluid, something practiced. There was no fumbling, no uncertain hesitation, only the smooth, effortless motion of someone who had done this before. A shift ran through the crowd, small but undeniable. People leaned in just slightly, their curiosity no longer just polite interest, but something deeper. This was not what they had been expecting. Then, as if deciding that the moment had stretched long enough, she truly began to play. The melody unfolded with a quiet elegance, her hands gliding over the keys as if she were telling a story without words. The notes spilled forth in perfect succession, each one intentional, each one forming part of something larger, something intricate. There was no hesitation, no awkward pauses. There was only music, rich, full, commanding the room in a way that nothing else had that evening. Expressions changed. The light amusement that had once played on so many faces faded, replaced by something more complex. Surprise, perhaps even disbelief. This was not a hesitant attempt, not the performance of someone merely dabbling for the sake of spectacle. This was skill. The sound swelled, filling every corner of the space, drawing in even those who had only been half listening at first. It was impossible not to be captivated. The clarity of each note, the precision with which she moved, the effortless way her hands danced over the keys, all of it defied expectation. No one had considered the possibility that she might actually know what she was doing, that she might not just play, but play well, that she might in fact be better than anyone in the room had anticipated. The piece built in complexity, cascading into runs that required dexterity and control, into chords that resonated with power and depth. There was no way to mistake this for anything other than the work of someone with true experience. For the first time since the challenge had been issued, there was no laughter, no murmured asides. The room was utterly still, every eye fixed on the scene unfolding before them. The performance did not falter, did not waver. There was no sign of uncertainty, no indication that she was struggling to keep up with the demands of the music. If anything, she seemed perfectly at ease, completely in her element. The melody soared, a final flourish before settling into something softer, something controlled. The notes faded into silence, leaving only the stunned quiet of the audience in their wake. The last note hung in the air, lingering for a moment before fading into the silence that had overtaken the room. It was the kind of silence that carried weight, not of discomfort, but of astonishment. Just moments ago, there had been quiet laughter, casual amusement at what had been expected to be a light-hearted display. Now, there was only the stunned stillness of an audience caught entirely off guard. She lifted her hands from the keys with practiced grace, as if the performance had been nothing at all, as if she had simply done what she had always known how to do. There was no triumphant smirk, no self-satisfied glance toward those who had doubted her. She simply sat there, composed, waiting for whatever came next. The shift in the atmosphere was undeniable. The easy certainty that had filled the room before, the assumption that this moment would be little more than an amusing misstep, was gone, replaced by an uneasy sort of realization. She had not just met the challenge, she had completely rewritten the terms of it. A few eyes darted toward one another, searching for confirmation that this had really happened, that the performance they had just witnessed was not some unexpected fluke. Murmurs spread through the crowd, some still processing what they had seen, others quietly reevaluating their own expectations. She had been underestimated. That much was clear now. It wasn't just that she could play, it was that she could play remarkably well. The fluidity, the control, the sheer confidence in every note had left no room for doubt. This was not the hesitant attempt of an amateur, nor the passable effort of someone who had taken a few lessons in childhood. This was mastery, honed over years of practice, a skill that had been hidden in plain sight until now. It was a rare moment, the kind that turned the tables with such quiet force that it took a few extra seconds for everyone to fully grasp it. The expectation had been one of awkwardness, of lighthearted embarrassment. Instead, the moment had unfolded into something completely different, a revelation, a reminder that people are often more than they seem. Expressions changed as realization settled in. There was no longer amusement in the eyes watching her. Instead, there was something else, something closer to respect, perhaps even admiration. Somewhere in the room, a slow clap began, hesitant at first, then gaining momentum as others joined in. The scattered applause quickly swelled into something louder, more insistent, as if the audience needed a way to release the energy that had built up during the performance. She remained still, accepting the reaction without needing to revel in it. There was no need. The music had spoken for itself. The challenge, once meant to expose a weakness, had instead revealed something entirely unexpected. The room remained enveloped in a profound silence, the echoes of the final note still resonating in the hearts of those present. Pam Bondi, having just delivered an unexpected and masterful piano performance, sat poised and serene, her demeanor reflecting the grace and confidence that had characterized her playing. The audience, initially anticipating a light-hearted spectacle at her expense, now found themselves in collective awe, grappling with the realization that they had profoundly underestimated her. As the applause swelled, filling the grand hall, with a fervor that matched the intensity of her performance, Bondi rose from the piano bench. She acknowledged the audience with a modest nod, her expression humble yet appreciative. There was no trace of smugness or triumph. Instead, she exuded a quiet dignity, embodying the essence of a true artist who plays not for accolades, but for the love of the craft. The crowd's reaction was a tapestry of emotions, astonishment, admiration, and a touch of introspection. Conversations buzzed with newfound respect as attendees exchanged glances that spoke volumes. The evening had taken an unforeseen turn, transforming from a potential moment of ridicule into a profound lesson on humility and the dangers of making assumptions. As Bondi made her way through the throng of guests, many stepped forward to offer their commendations. Each interaction was met with her characteristic warmth and grace, further dismantling any preconceived notions they may have held. It became evident that her talents extended beyond the political arena, revealing a multifaceted individual whose depth and complexity had been hidden beneath the surface. In the days that followed, the event became the talk of the town, with stories circulating about the night Pam Bondi defied expectations and showcased her musical prowess. Media outlets picked up the narrative, highlighting not just her performance, but the broader implications of the incident. Commentators reflected on the pervasive nature of assumptions and the importance of recognizing the diverse talents and abilities that individuals may possess, often unbeknownst to the public eye. For Bondi, the experience was a reaffirmation of her belief in authenticity and resilience. She had faced the challenge head-on, not with the intent to prove others wrong, but to stay true to herself and her passions. Her action served as a reminder that true confidence stems from within and that one's worth is not determined by external perceptions. The musician who had issued the challenge found himself at a crossroads, his initial intentions now a source of personal reflection. Confronted with the reality of his misjudgment, he grappled with feelings of embarrassment and regret. Yet, within this discomfort lay an opportunity for growth, a chance to acknowledge his own biases and to approach others with greater humility and openness in the future. The event left an indelible mark on all who witnessed it, serving as a poignant reminder of the richness of human experience and the countless stories that lie beneath the surface. Pam Bondi's unexpected piano performance became more than just a display of musical talent. It evolved into a symbol of the power of authenticity, the importance of embracing one's true self, and the profound impact that can have on the world around us. In the end, the evening was not defined by the challenge itself, but by the grace with which it was met and the lasting impressions it left behind. It was a testament to the idea that when we allow individuals the space to reveal their true selves, free from the constraints of assumption and prejudice, we open the door to moments of genuine connection and understanding. And so, the story of Pam Bondi's piano performance became a cherished narrative, one that would be recounted for years to come. A story of unexpected brilliance, of humility and grace, and of the enduring lesson that people are often more than they seem.